Good morning, ladies. Susan has asked me just to take a few minutes to share with you just a little bit about who I am and what my husband and I are doing and just the journey of faith that I've been on so far in my life. I have never done this before, so bear with me. I'm a talker, but I've never just talked to myself on a video, so I'm just going to pretend that you guys are listening and sitting in front of me in my living room or at church or something like that. Anyways, my name's Alicia Stewart, and I'm coming to you live from Nairobi, Kenya, where my husband Tim and I serve as missionaries. Susan is my cousin, second cousin. I've always thought of her more as an aunt. I don't know why aunts just seem more special than cousins for some reason. But now Tim and I just consider her and Brad to be family that are just also good friends. So I definitely appreciate her asking me just to take a few minutes to share about what God's doing in our lives. Let's see, my faith journey started when I was a kid. For as long as I can remember, my parents have followed Jesus. We've always gone to church. I've just grown up in a home and surrounded by parents and extended family who just love Jesus. When I was 10, my dad began in full-time ministry, and so we moved from the small town that we grew up in into an even smaller town where he was the minister of a little Southern Baptist church in a little bitty town. And so I've just grown up knowing ministry my whole life. But that said, I definitely took the typical small town pastor's daughter rebellious turn through a lot of my teenage and young adult years, and where Jesus was certainly present in my life. I wasn't seeking to follow after him. There weren't really a lot of thoughts about him, about how I could serve him, even if I wanted to serve him. A lot of that for me was just accompanied by guilt for any bad decision I would make or anything like that. And there were certainly a lot of bad decisions. So for me to be sitting here now talking to you from Kenya, where we just serve God and we're missionaries in the slums here, is just kind of funny to me because it's not something I dreamed of my whole life. I can't look back and say, oh, I knew I wanted to be a missionary since I was a little girl. It's kind of shocking to me that I'm a missionary. Not that I live this life that's crazy and it's fun and it's an adventure. That's always been kind of something for me. I like doing things that are different. I like having fun. I like trying new things, so that doesn't surprise me. But there's certainly been a long period in my life where I would have had no interest in giving up my comforts or what I enjoyed, what was surrounding me, to serve God. So anyways, kind of backing up just a little bit to early 20s, God just kept pursuing me, I think, kind of relentlessly in just the way that he does. Side note, I cry. It's just what I do, so you can just ignore it. I'm used to it. I won't get fazed by it, but I was just trying to create this grown-up life for myself, knowing that at some point in time I wanted to get married and have a family and go to church and do all the things that I saw my family and their friends and people do, and yet that's not what I was actively seeking. I just thought God would give those things to me, and that's just what you did as you got older and you got a job, you got married, you got a house, you got a family, you went to church. That's just what you did. And so I thought I would get those things aside from actively pursuing God, and yet the Holy Spirit just wouldn't let that happen for me. And so there just came a point in my life where some major surrender just had to happen for me, that I had to choose where I was going to go forward in following the things after God. And so what that meant for me was a lot of loss of friendships and just trying to create a different life for myself. And so I did that, and then I joined a church. I had moved to Springfield, Illinois, and I joined a church called Westside Christian Church, and I'm pretty social and outgoing, so with the loss of other friends just meant I needed to create some space for some new people in my life. So I started volunteering with the youth group and joining different like young adult groups and things like that. And so through that, I just began to connect to the church and get to meet people. And during that time, I went on my first mission trip to Mexico to do the Casas por Cristo thing, where you build a house for a family in a week. Physical labor, not my jam, but I did it. I felt like God was just calling me to do that, and so I just knew I had to do it. Easily the hardest thing I've done physically, but I definitely learned a lot about perseverance and just the way that God can equip you to do things kind of for Him in moments when you can't do it yourself. Never built a house, never done that stuff. Wouldn't even enjoy that stuff before that, but God just gave us the strength every day to do these tasks for His glory and to share the love of Christ with the family we were building the house for. And so I just came back from that. It was definitely like with most mission trips, I was just on fire and excited for God and the things of God, and just kept going to church and just going to Bible studies and just pursuing this relationship with Him, and a relationship with Jesus that was mine. I'm so thankful for the foundation that my family, and primarily my parents, have given me in the things of Christ. And I certainly know grace and the love of Jesus because of them, but there was just this period where I needed to develop my own relationship with God. And so during that time, I just was able to do that. And then within about a year or so, we were having a game night at our house. I had met a girl at the church, and she became my roommate. And so we just kind of had an impromptu game night and invited people over. And through that, my now husband, Tim, he came to the game night. I got to meet him. It was actually his first night home after serving in the National Guard in Iraq for a year. He came, we met. A couple weeks later, we joined a group that went to Brooklyn, New York to help with a church plant that our church was supporting out there in Brooklyn. And so we just kind of hung out and got to know each other, and all the while we were just serving out there and just doing some outreach to the community to get them to come to the launch Sunday for this church. And so we came back, we started dated for 6 months, got engaged, and then we got married within like another 7 months. And in 2007, I was able to go on a mission trip with my mom and my sister to Uganda, where we built libraries in school. And through that, I just felt like God was moving in my heart while we were there. And I very strongly felt a deep love and connection to Africa, and primarily Uganda at that time, and felt like maybe God was calling us to be missionaries. But my husband is really good at pumping my brakes for me, because I'm not so good at doing that myself. And so when I would call him and tell him I'm not coming home, you need to come to the airport and come to Africa, he would gently persuade me to come back and stuff. But I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something different about that experience for me and for us. And so that was at the beginning of June of that year. And so we just continually prayed about it. And eventually Tim just said, I think that you may be right, that God is calling us to do something like that. Let's keep praying about that. And so just a few months later, our church announced a partnership with Missions of Hope International, which is a ministry in the slums of Nairobi, Kenya. So when they did that at church, Tim just said, yeah, let's do that, though. Let's not go to Uganda. Let's go be a part of what our church is a part of in Kenya. And so through that, we did an internship for 2 months where we came over here to Kenya and just served with Missions of Hope, just to see, was this just a mission trip thing we felt excited about, but that God's not really calling us to be missionaries, but to do something different. And during those 2 months, we definitely knew this was our place to be, our place to serve, but the timing for that wasn't right. And so we came back to the States and just lived the lives we had. We had jobs. Tim coached football. all the while the call and the yearn to be here in Kenya was just on our hearts, and so we would pursue it. And eventually God opened the doors at the right time, and especially in hindsight we can just see the timing for this was right. And so we moved here in March of 2012 and have been here for the last 6 years. I serve at our organization as the partnerships coordinator, and so we have a lot of partnering churches in the U.S. that support Missions of Hope. They sponsor children, they come on short-term trips and just do different things. And so it's my job to just help make sure that all that's running smoothly, and that we are updating our partners regularly. I also oversee the child sponsorship department. Currently we have 21 schools throughout the slums in Kenya, where about over 1 million people live within a 1.5 square mile area of one another. A lot of extreme poverty, social injustices, abuse, a lack of employment, HIV/AIDS rate is very high. Just a lot of ugliness that the world has are just kind of concentrated into that area. And then in some different rural areas of Kenya, we have 21 schools and over 16,000 children in those schools currently. So I help oversee all of those things and make sure our kids get sponsored and write letters to their sponsors and just do different things like that. So that's just a little bit about the work that I do. I think we get to be in ministry and we love it, but we also just get up and go to a job every day. Super easy to see God at work around us in the things that we do. The kids are certainly the joy for me. Just to know that we get to help them change the trajectory of their life by giving them education, but more importantly, to give them hope in Jesus, and hopefully just allow them to reach out to their families and their communities. For us, the kids are the entry point into the family and the community, and so we take that really seriously, and everything that we do just has Jesus kind of saturated in it. We don't do anything without prayer, devotion, or just anything like that. And so it's very obvious how God is at work around us each day. But I think like anybody who's following after Jesus, you fall into, I'm not a super missionary or anything like that. I struggle in my faith. I get so busy sometimes doing the work of God that I forget to just spend time with Him. I forget to follow just quickly after Jesus, fiercely and passionately, to do those things because I'm so busy working for Him and stuff. And so that's been an interesting part of this last year, is just figuring out how to pump the brakes and slow down and spend some time with Jesus, and not just see Him working in the lives of people all around me, but to watch the way that He's working in my heart as well. I think that's where I find myself today, is just much like everyone else. I'm settled in my life and I have this wonderful life God has just richly blessed, but at the same time I'm also needing to just pursue after Him and to follow Him closely and find the ways at which I seek Him every day, the ways at which I can show His love to those around me in every moment and every encounter that I have, and not get so wrapped up in the serving that I forget the following of Him. And so I think that's me in a 15-minute nutshell. So I hope that you all have a wonderful, wonderful day. Thanks.